Let's try and take care of these sick people and not go to jail. There's a full spectrum of reasons lab testing is great. The POS wars were interesting over the past few years. AMA is the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, Proposition 64, which legalized cannabis in California for adults over the age of 21. Somebody with stage 4 cancer, they could spend $40 and get an edible to last them the week, 1,000 milligram edible cut into squares, and now those don't exist anymore. So that's getting that same 1,000 milligrams now. They just have to spend stupid money.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. I'm your host, Alan Sakian. We are at the New West Summit, which is the world's leading cannabis tech conference. We have the pleasure of sitting down with Jimi Devine. What's up, man?
How are you? Thank you so much, dude. Appreciate you. It's super awesome. Always trying to share that cannabis knowledge. New West is one of the best places to do it, for sure. Very much. It's still cutting edge, but New West 1.0 was at a time the idea of a weed tech conference was it made so much sense, and to get the first time those kind of tech thought leaders in the room together, that kind of thing, and just what's transpired from there, it's so much fun every time.
Yeah. And this is a major key. So Jimi is a senior staff writer at Cannabis Now magazine and also writes for other publications as well. And you just made the point that New West Summit 1.0 until now 4.0, this has been a process since, 2014?
Yeah.
So, and cannabis has evolved, so much since then. And you've been writing about it now with Cannabis Now for 2 years, but for a long time.
Yeah, the first time I was published was way back in the day, 2008, was about policy stuff. Mostly around weed and financial aid stuff, when Massachusetts decriminalized, Scott Brown, who went on to be senator in Massachusetts when he was still a state senator, he wanted to recriminalize weed in a car. So I argue that that's just creating a new mechanism in the middle of the financial crisis, because this is 2008, in the middle of a financial crisis, creating new roadblocks to education.
Yes.
Is not how to solve our country's drug problems. You know what I'm saying? So and then just. The financial aid thing I got out here for the industry, got out to the industry in 2009. Been in Berkeley, one of the most progressive cannabis spaces in the universe for the last decade, just trying to, absorb as much information as I can. And I've been really lucky to see a lot of the people who are killing it today, make their way to the top. And just it's been so fun to tell their stories, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And all right, let's unpack some of the so from 2008, 9 until now, it's been 10 years. There's been a lot of craziness that's happened in both decriminalization as well as legalization, medicinal purposes, the use of this in medicinal purposes, just technology evolving within the industry with the science. There's so much that's going on, and you write about this so frequently. 3 times a week you're publishing a piece.
Yeah.
Yes. So why don't you kind of walk us through what have been some of these major sort of pillars and milestones and fields that have been evolving over the last decade in the cannabis industry?
Well, it's one of the things I point to is just the customer experience from 1997. So I use 2008 as a number, but that's a blurry number. It was all about let's try and take care of these sick people and not go to jail. And I'm pulling for you, you're pulling for me. It was a very homey vibe. All the people, everyone who had the actual stones to open up shop, we're pretty, for the most part, we're very interconnected. Americans for Safe Access, the support network they were each other's support network. And it's Berkeley as another example with Medical Cannabis Commission, seeing businesses take it upon themselves to kind of guide this industry in the most responsible way possible at the smallest scale. Because you're talking about, when you talk about Northern California, you're talking about 3 of the oldest regulated cannabis markets in the world, in Oakland, Berkeley, and San Francisco separately, even if they weren't all next to each other, And so just the regulatory incubator that I've got to watch firsthand, Steep Hill Lab started, the lab testing started in Oakland a decade ago, for real deal, meaningful like, you know, the meaningful kind that, you know, is affecting us the way it is now a decade later.
And I want to also have you potentially explain to us here, because lab testing itself is extremely important, because we can find mold, we can find cannabis, we can test the strains for specific cannabinoids, etc., and those can specifically help with illnesses.
So many. There's a full spectrum of reasons lab testing is great. Knowing you're not smoking poison, knowing why this cannabis is affecting this ailment that I have the way it is. Like those are the two main fantastic ones. And you know, as we've seen recently in California, the labs tell the story. Like according to a recent report from the Bureau of Cannabis Control, like a lot of the failed test results are saying it's not because it's poison in people's weed and it's pesticides and stuff like that, which there is. There's a bunch of people that fail for that, but for the most part, it's people failing failing the labeling standards of the state. So it goes to the lab. It's not as good as they said it was. Boom, send it back. But then there's obviously, you know, all the other societal consumer safety, a plethora of great reasons. And hopefully, you know, it's been tough for the labs this year, getting caught up with this new market, you know, 150% demand across the state. That all had to go through these laboratories. And then you had the standards that hit on July 1st, 2017. That was a whole nother wave of, you know, kind of bottleneck times for people. And it's, you know, it's a growing process for everybody. And, you know, we're obviously pulling for the labs to, you know, do the best they can with it.
And then what have been some of the, you know, you just made this really cool point about this Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco kind of like triangle. And what have been some of the craziest, you know, progresses in regulation that we've seen that have enabled the people to get their medicine, et cetera?
Well, you know, even though, even with what happened with California, compassion programs in California, you know, this is still like the backbone. These Berkeley, Oakland, and San Francisco dispensaries are all taking a huge hit right now because the product that they're giving away to these, you know, hospice patients, little kids with seizures, you know, there's a whole wide variety of people being helped. That product has to enter the system the same way that a product that's going to be sold to any given person is. And the whole point of Senate Bill SB 829 that Jerry Brown vetoed a couple weeks ago was to create a mechanism within the regulatory framework so that medicine would be under kind of like a different tax code and would be hit the same way as all that stuff that was going out the front door, like, you know, with, you know, for recreational purposes, medical purpose, all that other stuff, whatever. Like, but, you know, the hit that people are taking on the free medicine they're selling is rough, for sure. But, you know, kudos to those who do it anyway, and, you know, bite the bullet and, you know, are just working, going to continue to work in Sacramento to find a solution. And as a lot of people have faith that our next governor could revisit the issue. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So, oh my gosh, there's so much to still like understand. Let's talk about tech's influence, because, you know, regulations all, like, there's so much nuance to unpack with regulation. It looks like we're moving towards a standard of legalization across many countries in the world and even states, which is, you know, fantastic. Maybe even before we get to tech, I want to hear your opinion on this. What is the proper way to maybe ease, I know everybody's different, but what's the proper way to ease somebody into cannabis so that they have a good experience with cannabis, so that it's not, the safety is there, you know?
You know, I'd probably go with a nice, you know, hybrid. You know, you don't want to give them no like panic attack, train wreck. You don't want to give them any purple punch that's gonna like stick them to the couch. You know, depending on how, you know, the person's mindset, you know, it could be a really negative experience first time. So give them something, you know, that it's enjoyable, fun.
What about dosage wise in milligrams?
You know, I think that the milligram thing is kind of like an artificial barrier on the industry. It kind of makes it takes out the competition of who's going to give you the most bang for your buck if everyone has to put the most in. So that kind of, I personally feel that the milligrammage thing kind of artificially regulated the market and kind of hit the consumers in a way that now they can't get the most bang for their buck. Because like last year, you know, up to December 31st, somebody with like, you know, stage 4 cancer, they could spend $40 and get an edible to last them the week, 1,000 milligram edible, cut into squares, you know, and now those don't exist anymore. So that's getting that same 1,000 milligrams now. They just have to spend stupid money, and then the taxes on top of it, presuming that they're not a member of the MMIC card program, which so few people are. It's tough.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. They used to be able to take these big like Kurova bars and black bars, and they could take these 1,000 milligram bars and chop them up into small pieces, and then that's what could help them with over time $40 for helping them with stage 4 cancer. Now it costs so much more because of the regulation. That's very interesting. I do still wonder though, like kind of like, you know, is like one of those little 3 milligram like Tic Tacs, like is that kind of like an interesting way to like ease somebody into like, oh, like how does your body feel now after an hour?
Back in the day, like I used to suggest, I would recommend when the first generation Kurova products, they had that 150 milligram chocolate cookie. I tell people, take this cookie, cut it in half, and just you'll be fine. You'll be fine. It might not even. You might need more. You might need. You know, it might not do it.
Dude,
like,
that's a big dose.
But I never had anyone come back and be like, oh my God, like everyone was always like, I'm going to go buy some more cookies, you know? So it is what it is. You know, it's preposterous to me that the market doesn't have access to really the dope quality few hundred milligram stuff that it did in the past. And it's stupid. And it only creates a mechanism within the black market for something to do. You know what I mean?
Okay, teach us about, you know, the panel that you moderated was about technology and cannabis, and there was, you know, IoT, Internet of Things, there was VR, AR, blockchain. There were so many of these different people representing different parts of technology that were entering into the cannabis space, artificial intelligence. What have you learned from them, and where do you see, like, what are you writing about within technology and cannabis?
Well, one of the big things with cannabis tech is, even though, you know, it's a new industry like this, you know, when it comes to like a lot of these solutions, inventory stuff, you know, business management stuff, like the wheel's already been made a few times, and maybe sometimes there's a race, like people trying to rebuild the wheel. And, you know, so there's this balance that totally exists between repurposement of things that have been used successfully in other industries and innovation that's obviously going to be needed. Like, so I think the question I wish I could answer, like, is what, you know, where is that balance point, so on and so forth. It's a wild one, you know?
That's actually a big one. Why don't you unpack that just a little bit more for us? Because what I see right now, like you're saying, is I see so many different technologies that have been made that can just be repurposed into cannabis, and then there's like an unneeded amount of trying to like make a new wheel for the cannabis industry. Whereas it could almost be like, what is completely new that hasn't been innovated that can work for the industry? Maybe give us some of the examples as well of where you see the artificial intelligence kicking in, people having experiences. Like we know of a friend that has a meditation experience for cannabis, for augmented and virtual reality. Yep.
Well, I think with AI, once you get it to like, the main thing is going to be once it's tuned in to the pot, like the way you're looking at it, when the way AI is going to be able to look at the data sets. Like that's the most immediate thing I would imagine. You know, a lot of people talk about blockchain. It's tough, like outside of inventory control, I could see the idea of creating a coin or something like that, a mechanism that stays with a plant, or like and then that coin can break down. You can cut that coin up and it can go with each piece of inventory that traveled from that plant. Like that makes sense it seems over the top to me, but it makes sense to me as well. I'm a tougher sell on weed coin ICOs and stuff like that, like initial coin offerings. But like repurposing blockchain for like super advanced inventory control, like, you know, maybe like for somewhere like Utah, like I could see that.
Having a decentralized and immutable digital ledger is a fantastic way to keep in track of really high caliber goods. On that are in the cannabis space.
A lot of people use QuickBooks until they had to get set up for track and trace and metric, you know what I'm saying? And it was fine. Like taxes were paid on time, everything was fine. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like the POS wars were interesting over the past few years, for sure. Seeing companies try and position themselves to be the top of that market. But prior to those guys, who are it's still a very new thing, like comparatively, like, you know, everyone was just using QuickBooks. It was fine. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's a repurposement is a cool thing, because then you can really use your time to innovate if you don't spend your time innovating things that are already been done well. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
I don't want to sound like a hater. I don't want to sound like a hater, but there's like there's a quasi line that I don't, you know, I wouldn't claim I could walk it, but it's there.
Yeah, I side with you on this. It's really important to figure out where to invest the time into moving the industry forward as optimally as possible. And I sometimes, yeah, just adding a thing to the wheel isn't necessarily the best way. You mentioned the race in point of sale. People see like a lot of money to be made there in point of sale. That's why they want to be the point of sale at all the dispensaries. They want to have their software there. Where else? I want to know, where else do you see the the big time races in the cannabis industry, cannabis and tech?
Separately from the tech side, distribution, because everyone wanted to be the guy. Well, of course, verticals play a big role in everything. Like, they're kind of off on their own little island, so we don't think about it. How much great pot is, you know, attached to like vertically integrated processes and all that jazz. But once you talk to the people trying to get in recently, it's a distribution battle, and it's trying to get the best weed possible to distribute to various dispensaries. And some people definitely do better than others. Because it's tough to go against like killers. You know what I mean? There's people they've been growing banging ass weed for a decade, and it's like, why do I want you, some guy, to, like, I've never seen in my life, to be the middleman? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a battle, but some people pulling it off. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a bunch of people that wanted to grow weed, got in the mix in recent years. You know, and they need someone to distribute their shit too. You know, everyone, because you got to remember, I think the vertical cutoff was like June 1st, 2016. Was if you were like set up by then, you could like vertically integrate for what was to come, even if legalization didn't pass, even if it was just the medical marijuana regulations like MRSA and all that. You would like that. It would have looked pretty. You know, it would have looked pretty similar to what it looks like right now. Like, you hear a lot of people blaming AMA for everything in the world, and you got to remember what was in the pipeline with MRSA was going to look pretty similar too. And from an enforcement sense, from the way the bar was going to be raised.
And what AMA and MRSA teach?
Oh, I'm sorry. AMA is the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, Proposition 64, which legalized cannabis in California for adults over the age of 21. And MRSA was the medical oh my God, I hope I got it right. It was like the Medical Cannabis Research and Safety Act. There's another word in there I'm missing. But that was like a few years ago, and that kind of was set up to regulate the industry a bit more than it had been in those gray times once things cooled off, you know. Because also the state didn't want to have a bunch of books on people, like, as supportive as California was, and, you know, not everywhere, you know, there's pretty hater sheriffs. The state didn't want to have a bunch of books on people if the feds came calling. Like, maybe, you know, Obama didn't work out, you know. But nevertheless, so, you know, eventually things got to the point where the regulatory system and the aura of safety was there enough to hold the industry to a higher standard, but beyond the Board of Equalization saying that you paid your taxes. So
this is important. So this is like creating legislation that helps us with medical safety research, as well as just being able to just legally be like, this is cool for adults over 21 to possess and smoke or ingest.
Well, what happened was MRSA passed, and then AMA passed, and then they had to be merged. And since AMA was the will of the voters, AMA was supposed to beat out MRSA when they collided, like on like specific subject matter. There's some debate, did that always happen? There's some, you know, there's a lot, you know, this is still a contentious topic. Like, because the whole point of it, a lot of this was to try and bring the industry into the light, not create a new one. And it's some people say that's a tough sell, that's happened. And it would be tough. I wouldn't start the debate against them, because there's definitely a lot of hill kids up there that thought they had their ducks in a row and thought that, you know, whether it be water rights, whether it be municipality, that thought they had a good shot, that are in tough shape right now.
Yeah.
Be it, you know, fires, whatever, regulations, you know, a lot. It was a tough year, and hopefully, you know, once everything settles out a bit more and the landscape levels out, like people like still have a shot to, like, you know, that family farm that existed for 30x years still has a shot to be a part of the market, you know?
Yeah. Wow, there's so much nuance here, and there's so much history here, and now we're kind of moving into, like, this is a future of cannabis conference. So give us your kind of your favorite thing, your favorite strategy, your favorite future part of the cannabis industry. Where are you pushing your marbles? Where are you pushing your attention? Why are you interested in that?
The story, like, if I had to pick a story I could break, I guess it would be, once things are a little bit more set up at the federal level, who knows how long that is. I'm not as optimistic as some folks. Excuse me, I'm not as optimistic as some folks. But there's something to be said that all these Canadian companies are positioning themselves super well for the long term. Of course. But once American money is able to really hit the market, like really come in like full scale, like I'm curious to which company wins that race. Like, who's the first like American company to just like dominate on a 50 state level, like without fear of repercussion, anything. Like, it's just that those guys, and they exist probably already. It's just seeing why, like, and it's another thing. You've watched how people, you know, like I said, put their ducks in a row, like in the most responsible way possible. A lot of people who did, you know, they hit it big. Like, it wasn't all sad stories, and you know, we'll just keep hoping for those folks and hope more people get a shot.
I think that what Jimmy's pointing to, especially for you guys at home to think about, is, you know, this is all about foresight. It's about knowing that cannabis is exploding in the United States and even across the world, and it's really important to think and innovate ahead of time in this industry. What are people going to want? What are the businesses going to need? What is the scientific process, the media process going to need? And how can then we build out the right infrastructure and strategies to potentially become, there's going to be billionaires that come out through this industry because they're the ones that are in all 50 states, that they're not worried about repercussions, all that kind of stuff.
And there's gonna be you know, some really super hyper boutique stuff too that people like, and it's gonna hold its price point for years. Stuff like that, you know, it's gonna be crazy how it all comes down in the end.
And the Walmart brand.
They already exist, you know. They're like, there's a lot of crappy pot. Like, I would argue a lot of the cannabis getting introduced into the market is, you know, subpar, you know, for like what we could be doing at scale if everyone really did it with the passion and love you see from the people that have put their lives into it, you know.
Awesome. That was as nuanced as we could get in a short conversation with you. So much to unpack still about cannabis. Check out Jimi online. Where can people find you easiest?
Instagram, Twitter.
At Jimi Devine.
JimiDevine.com.
That's a good one. Link's going to be in the bio. We'll have it in the bio for you guys to check out. And as you guys know, go and create, go build, go manifest your destiny into the world. Keep an eye on the cannabis industry and how you can potentially be a part of it.
Man.
It's going down, man. Much love, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Crush on. Producing super high-end cannabis and